Hello and welcome to Nutrition and Alternative Medicine. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's show. Before we get started in today's show, I want to let you know today is October 2nd. Can you believe it? Oh my God, it's October 2nd. And this year is flying by and there's still so much more to do. And before we know it, it'll be January. And you will be back with me at Releasing What Weighs You Down. But before then, I just wanted to let you know about a live masterclass that I'm actually doing this Saturday. It's free. It's me and 4 other fabulous, amazing powerhouse women. It is Saturday, October 6th, and it is happening for a few hours. It's a 3-hour in-studio workshop, and it is called Freedom for Perfectionists. Do you have high standards for success? Do you have a dream for your life or for the world, but worry that you'll fail and that you're not good enough or that it's just too late? If you're tired of doing constant battle with your inner critic and outer circumstances, and you want to be empowered and live a vibrant life on your terms, then I'm going to invite you to join me for the Freedom for Perfectionists Masterclass. Broadway conductor and TV composer Deborah Hurwitz brought together me and 3 other top transformational leaders to provide you with concrete strategies to clear your blocks, clear your to-do lists, and love your new life. So in order for you to sign up, like I said, it's free. I would love you to join the live stream because it's going to be in studio and so much fun. But if you can't make the live stream, there will be a replay, and you can register by going to jjflazanes.com/perfect, like perfectionists. jjflazanes.com/perfect. Again, that's this Saturday, October 6th. And again, if you can't make it live, depending on where you are and what you're doing, because it is Saturday, there will be a replay and it is free. jjflazanes.com/perfect. Today's show is going to kind of get us back on the health track. We have back Tracey Edmonds, and Tracey was with us a few months ago. We did a show called Hollywood Producer Turns Health Advocate because Tracey had launched her new website called allrightnow.com. Tracey's a pretty big player in the entertainment industry. She's been on in front of the camera with ExtraTV, where she was a co-host alongside Mario Lopez and Charissa Thomas for 3 years. But she really serves as CEO and president of Edmonds Entertainment and CEO and president of All Right TV. Tracey Edmonds has created and produced groundbreaking projects for television, film, music, and digital media. She's a Stanford grad. She has served on the board of governors for the Producers Guild of America, where she chaired the Guild's annual Celebration of Diversity Gala for 3 consecutive years. And since recording the first episode, Tracey and I have actually become friends and have recorded a few shows together on different people's podcasts, including what's going to be coming out soon on the Food Heals podcast. So Tracey, I invite everyone to go back and download the Hollywood Producer Turned Health Advocate show that Tracey and I first did together. And this one, we're going to dive a little deeper into alternative medicine treatments for cancer, as well as just the conversation that keeps going on about the difference between Western medicine and alternative medicine from our point of view, those of us that are very interested in studying and asking questions against the status quo because of loved ones or even ourselves who've gone through things and uncovered, let's just say, ways in which we deal with our bodies that maybe aren't as mainstream, that we definitely want to spread the word about. Welcome back to the show, Tracey.
Thank you. Always great to be here.
We touched on a lot of things on our last call and our last show, and I want to make sure everybody who is listening to this, if you haven't heard Tracey's first show we did, please go back and find it and listen to it. It was awesome, and we touched on all these different topics, and I want to go a little deeper in some of the things that we touched on and got excited about but sort of ran out of time for. And while you heard all of Tracey's background, Tracey, why don't you give people a real quick short, that way we don't have to spend too much time with it, of your story of how you are where you are right now in starting your website and your new mission in the wellness space.
Well, and it's so hard for me to kind of do the abridged version, but I will do my best, JJ. So for those of you that don't know me, my background is in entertainment. And so I've been a TV and film producer for the last, 25 years. Wow. And I was also an on-camera personality. I co-hosted the TV show Extra. But what most people do not know about me is that I have been on a health and wellness and spiritual journey for the last, oh my gosh, I would say since I was about 22 years old. And for me, it's all been about clean living and, finding balance in your life. And, I really do believe that you can kind of grab whatever it is that you want in life, whether it's love, career, spirituality, balance, whatever, as long as you find peace. And so part of the journey that I've been on has really been also too on healthy living and keep feeding your body and treating your body as a temple and putting good stuff in your body and believing that when you do so, it's about, preventative health and, it will keep disease away and it will keep illness and ailments away. Like if you really, really treat your body right. And so I began that journey, JJ, when I was about 22 or 23 years old. My father had quadruple bypass heart surgery and he had 4 clogged arteries. And, I'm a young kid, eating junk food all the time and fast food and everything. And I really didn't know much about health. And so I remember asking the doctor, well, how do your arteries get clogged? How does this happen? How did this happen to my dad? And so he started explaining to me about, like if you, eat things that have a lot of cholesterol, a lot of processed foods, they're bad for you and they can clog your arteries and all that kind of stuff. And so, that just kind of scratched the surface for me. And so I started like grabbing books and reading up on, on nutrition and health and healthy eating and superfoods and all that kind of stuff. And I became more and more curious. And so, really at that early age, I really kind of gave up bad foods. I gave up fast foods. I gave up actually red meat. I gave up pork. I became, more concerned about everything that I was putting into my body. And I really believe that it's really paid off for me. And I've been very blessed. And those that are around me, including my kids, know, knock on wood and praise God, I don't get sick. And so I haven't had a cold or a flu in, I think, probably over 20 years. And, all the digestion issues that I used to have as a kid where, I'd feel bloated and, get a stomach ache and heartburn after eating and stuff. I don't have any of those anymore because I'm putting really great things into my body and stuff. And so, all that to say, I just really believe that if we really, really watch what we're putting into our body and feed our body with good things, we can really prevent, disease and a lot of illnesses and ailments.
Absolutely. And some of the impetus, though, that kind of pushed you to do this now was also the loss of both of your parents. Yes.
Yes. And so, sadly enough, this past year was really, the most challenging year of my life. And unfortunately, finally, the heart issues caught up with my father. And so I lost my father in September and he died unexpectedly of a heart attack. And almost a year prior, I lost my mother. And so I lost my mother due to cancer. She had mesothelioma, which is one of the most rare and hardest, to treat forms of cancer. And she also had 2 blood diseases at the same time that we were fighting. She had a red blood cell disease and a white blood cell disease. And so, I went on a journey with her for about 2 years where, I was just kind of by her side, and searching the world for cures and for help for her and stuff. And so I learned a lot along the way about cancer, as part of that journey. And so all that to say is that, yes, it's been a really, really challenging year. And so, having gone through that experience and losing, both of my parents, it really felt like, it was time, for this next chapter in my life, which is to share what I've learned, with as many people as I can about health and wellness and balance and taking care of yourself and So I launched this website January 1st, and the website is really about, sharing tools with everyone so that they can be their best selves.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And I said this in last show. I'm so sorry to hear that, because I can't even imagine that, the loss. And I know that the loss, though, has empowered you and pushed you to serve in a greater way, which is why you created All Right Now. And while I wouldn't wish that on anyone, or, but as life cycles, we have that. It creates meaning in our pain to then help and be even more dedicated to the mission of helping other people. And so that was a lot of what we talked about in the first show with Tracey. And I wanted her to share that with you, for those of you that haven't heard her first show.
Yes.
And one of the things that we did talk about that I want to dive into deeper today, there's a balance between two things: practical versus spiritual. And the practical side, like I said, neither one of us are physicians, but because you have been so interested for so long, and you've been a student, and you've asked questions, and you've been able to have the resources and the time to focus on your parents and what they were going through and ask questions. You had mentioned in the previous show about pharmaceuticals, and that you have all that you have learned, that you would basically want to make it so that you never needed to take any kind of pharmaceutical drugs ever. And you prefaced it by saying, I don't know how you feel about this, JJ, which most of the people who listen to my show know I'd be very much with you on that. And I am. And so what it was great. And so I want to go down that path a little bit. And I want you to share with us what you learned, because we're just sharing information. And again, neither one of us are physicians. And so, but the great thing about today's day and age with the internet is we have access to learn things. So it's not just in the medical book that a doctor has. I mean, most of the doctors I've had on my show are the first to tell me that you never learn about nutrition as a physician. But most of you out there listen to your doctor when they tell you what to eat. But they're not nutritionists, and they didn't study nutrition in their medical practice, in their medical degree. They had one semester, if that, of nutrition in all of their training. But because they're a doctor, we give them all this power as if they know everything about everything. And it's just infuriating. And even then, doctors, like people in a class, can not be that good or not that smart. You can still become a doctor and not really be all that inclusive, and be very specialized, so much so that you don't take into consideration all the other factors that go into certain things. So I'm not trying to disrespect the medical profession, because I think it has a place, but I think that there's this mysticism too, and this overpower that we give to the Western medical, when really, if we dug underneath the surface, it's really a lot of politics and money. And I don't believe that cancer and chemotherapy is ever going away. It's one of the biggest businesses we have. While there's cancer research, I really don't believe that it's ever going away. It's too much money.
Exactly.
Doctors are making and hospitals are making, and we're getting more and more hospitals. And you know why? Because we keep thinking that the medical profession is going to heal us. And I don't believe that at all. I think our healthcare is sick care. When you get to that point, you're not healthy, you're sick. It's not healthcare, it's sick care. And what Tracey's doing and what I'm doing and what other people out there passionately doing are trying to keep you from ever stepping foot there, because we want to keep you healthy and prevent that from happening. That's where health is to me.
Oh, that's so good. I could not have said that better, JJ. That's pretty awesome what you said. I mean, just to add to what to what you're sharing, you have to go back and you have to look at ancient cultures, right? And you go back and you look at, ancient India, you look at cultures all over the world, Eastern cultures. And, these are ancient cultures that predated pharmaceuticals. And so when they had illnesses, they relied on botanical remedies. And so they relied on plants and, and vegetables and, flowers, things that were at their disposal and that were part of nature. And they, they had very bright, intelligent people in their cultures that, were ancient scientists in a way, and ancient doctors in a way, and, knew that, if you were sick, that, things like garlic could help you, or things like oregano could help you. And so, these were, this was knowledge that was passed on from generation to generation, and it's still valid. These botanical items still help people with ailments and illnesses. And, if you're consuming, a lot of these botanicals and certain fruits and vegetables, the same way that they worked in ancient cultures, they work in modern day society, where they can help you prevent or get over a cold, or help you with a sore throat, or, ointments that can, from aloe vera, that can help with skin. And, so all of those things are still very relevant. The thing that's happened, in modern day society, and, just keeping it real in this conversation, is that, the media and pharmaceutical companies, are running the world, and so, and everyone, from doctors, unfortunately, to the media, to, everyone, they're in bed with pharmaceutical companies. And the only way pharmaceutical companies can make money, like you said, JJ, is off of sick people, people that have ailments and people that have illnesses. And so, it's to a pharmaceutical company's best interest to market and promote these products as, the end all to cure, these ailments. Whereas if people really kind of studied, botanical science and, natural remedies for some of these things, they wouldn't even need to spend money on these pharmaceuticals, because it's already there. A lot of these things are already there in your kitchen. And so, one of the things that I did when I really, started getting hip to natural medicine and, the benefits of, botanicals and things like that, is I cleaned out my pantry, and I used to have a whole little medicine chest that had all of the traditional over-the-counter remedies for colds and all that kind of stuff. And so I had, quite a bit of that stuff. And so, because I was using it on, even on my kids and stuff, but I cleared out all that, and I replaced it with things like, oregano oil, garlic oil, turmeric, botanical healthy remedies for all of these things. And, and I, got my kids into that, as well. And so the second I'd see them starting to, look like they're getting a cold or a flu, we've got, echinacea and, garlic, and, we're doing all of that and implementing all of that into their system, as opposed to, these over-counter, pharmaceutical items that really have a lot of bad side effects and really put a lot of bad chemicals into your system. And for our household, it's been amazing. Like, my kids, they don't get sick, very often. And so, they're at school, and, they're around other sick kids and stuff. And so, every now and then they'll come home, and I can tell, like my son will say, "Mom, I think I'm getting a sore throat." And, we start the natural, remedies and stuff into effect immediately, and it goes away really, really fast.
What were some of the things that you learned specifically about, like, when your parents were dealing with their illnesses and then in their decline?
Well, I mean, sadly enough, when my mom had, cancer and stuff, and again, she had probably if not one of the hardest forms of cancer to cure, that being mesothelioma. And so even if we had wanted to go down the chemo route, which we didn't, or radiation route, which we didn't, those two treatment forms do not help mesothelioma at all. So I really just kind of started, like, researching and reading and talking to doctors all over the world about mesothelioma, but also about cancer, and so I started, like, learning a lot of things. And one of the things I think, JJ, that we may have touched on, last time, just for a hot second, but we can go a little bit deeper into it, is, sugar, actually, causes cancer to grow. Cancer cells, they eat sugar and they multiply, off of sugar, and they grow and expand, and unfortunately, I'm not going to say all Western doctors, but most Western doctors do not talk about that. Most Western oncologists that are supposed to be cancer experts do not inform the public about that, at all. And so, a lot of us, probably most of us have some cancer cells in our body. So it's probably pretty impossible, not to have a single cancer cell in your body or whatever, but a lot of these cancer cells are kind of, dormant, in a lot of individuals that are, deemed pretty healthy, but they can grow and they can expand and they can multiply. And they can do so, off of sugar and stuff. And so, it was really sad for me to see, like, even in my mom's case, I'd go into, the doctor's office with her, and, I'd see a lot of cancer patients, and they were receiving, chemotherapy and stuff, but then in the doctor's office, I'd see these big bowls of like candy, and stuff. And I was just like, gosh, I'm like, isn't anyone telling these cancer patients that, like, stay away from sugar, right? Let's kind of not give the cancer, any additional, ammunition to grow, and so, so that was a really eye-opening, experience for me, like really talking to, other doctors that, were really doing scientific studies on, the connection between sugar consumption, and cancer growth. And sadly enough, like, I still don't know how my mom got mesothelioma, because it's like one of the rarest, and normally it afflicts people in the lungs, and normally it's construction workers, and somehow she got it in the stomach, and we don't know how. But prior to her being diagnosed, it appeared that like her stomach had grown, quite a bit in the last year, and she didn't know what was going on, but I think it was, the tumors in her stomach that were growing. And, one of the things, and I don't, I can't prove that this is a direct connection for why things grew so fastly, but my mom had a thing for sweet iced tea, and she would make pictures and pictures of sweet iced tea and just drink it all day long. And she'd put so much sugar into the sweet iced tea. And every time I come to visit her and open up the refrigerator, there's just pictures and pictures of sweet iced tea. And I know, especially, the year or two before she was diagnosed, I know she was drinking tons and tons of sweet iced tea. And whether that caused things to grow or not, I don't know. But, that is one of the things. And so, in my household, we really try to implement a low sugar diet. And so, I mean, there's other alternatives nowadays for, things, that are other natural ways to make things taste sweet, like stevia and some other things. And so, anyway, so that's one of the biggest things that I learned. And also too, I believe that there are a lot of practices that are and treatment forms that are available outside of the United States that are actually showing, some positive results in the form of treating cancer and diminishing tumors. One of them being high dosages of vitamin C. And we actually tried that on my mom. And prior to these red blood cell diseases kind of taking over, the high dosages of vitamin C had actually reduced her tumors by 40%.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about that. I don't know if it was on audio or on air or not.
Right.
But we did talk about that as being an alternative medicine, which is why I wanted you to share your experience, because while I keep saying we're not doctors, you learned, you researched, and you tried things. And here's a case of where you did an alternative therapy that was proving to be successful.
Right.
And on the point with the sugar, I've done several shows. I've got it in the last book I just wrote, and I talk about sugar not as often recently in the last like 6 months, because I've been moving on to more spiritual things, but it's on a lot of the shows I've already done. So anyone can go back and find The Truth About Sugar. It was in season 2 of the Fit to Love podcast. It will be back again, because one of the things that I learned about sugar and understand, because I work in a medical facility with a nutritionist and a functional medicine physician. And sugar, people think of sugar, like when you say that in the sweet iced tea, like that's probably the worst form of sugar, because it's it's fructose, and fructose is one step away from turning into glucose. And we look at most things as being sweet, as being sugar, but what people don't realize is carbohydrates turn to sugar.
Right.
All carbohydrates, your fruits, your vegetables, and all starchy carbohydrates turn to sugar. And so it's not just about cutting out the sweet things, it's about limiting those starchy carbohydrates and our total carbohydrate, which is why the keto diet has been very popular recently because it was actually used with cancer patients. It was taking people down to a very, very, very minute, small amount of carbohydrate, and tumors would shrink and die. And that just proved that, what you just talked about in terms of doctors researching the correlation between sugar and cancer, and that
Right.
cancer cells grow when they're fed, and they're fed by sugar. But sugar is more than just the sweet sugar that we eat. It's also in all of our starchy carbohydrates, and as well as our fruits and vegetables. But I'm gonna say, don't worry about your fruits and vegetables. They've got antioxidants and vitamin C in them, so they'll be fine. But it's mostly these less nutritious, don't have too much in them that we need, starchy carbohydrates that people overconsume, from French fries to breads and cookies, and forget the sugar stuff, but just all that, the pastas and we overeat those things, and then that's as much sugar in our body as drinking a Coke.
Yep, you're so right on all fronts. Totally agree.
So this vitamin C treatment, did you do anything else besides vitamin C for your mom?
You know what? That's as far as we got, unfortunately. To be honest with you, there was another doctor in Vienna that was doing amazing things in Vienna. And I saw, I read his reports and everything. And so he was doing making amazing progress, combining immunotherapy with heat and vitamin C IVs, and so high dosages of vitamin C. And so I was trying to actually get her out to Vienna, the last year of her life, just to see maybe if he would give us, some hope. And, sadly enough, the doctor here in LA was like, I don't believe any of that stuff. It's not worth you going out and traveling, to try any of that stuff. And so unfortunately, he discouraged her from trying that. So we never got a chance to see on her the benefits of this immunotherapy, heat, and vitamin C process. But I can tell you, and this is a whole nother podcast, JJ, I can tell you that I have another relative, unfortunately, that got cancer, got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and we sent him over to Vienna to try the immunotherapy and the heat and the vitamin C. And it took him from stage 4 to right now, we don't see any signs of it in his body.
Awesome.
So, yeah, pretty incredible.
And how did you learn about, because I have got my number one resource for alternative cancer treatments. How did you find out about these? Just Googling on the internet?
You know what? There's a guy, Dr. Ralph Moss. Have you come across him yet, JJ?
No.
He's amazing. He is considered a world-renowned cancer expert. He has he's written several best-selling novels, lectures all over the world, and he is I consider him pretty much an authority on regular, traditional cancer treatments, Western medicine treatments, your traditional chemo, radiation, all of that, as well as alternative, treatments as well. So he is very well versed in both ways to treat cancer. And he acts now as a consultant, and you can actually, schedule a phone, consultation with him. I forgot what state he's in, but you can send him your medical records, and he can kind of at least, send you in the right direction. And so, like, if you're stage 4 and they've told you have no hope, he's very well versed in all types of cancer, and he can look at your medical records and then at least kind of say, okay, well, maybe you should talk to this person or that person, or I happen to know, a patient that was recently treated by this doctor for this, and it really helped her. And so he's the one, JJ, that actually referred me to the doctor in Vienna, because he had actually been out to visit his facility, his clinic, his hospital, and had actually, reviewed the patient's records and all of that.
That's great. And I'm glad for that resource. And I'm going to look him up, because my resource that I tell everyone to get is Knockout by Suzanne Summers.
Oh, yeah.
Her book is basically interviews with doctors who are curing cancer. And then the book also tells you how not to get it in the first place. So, and she wrote this book after Breakthrough. And I don't know if you know Suzanne's work, but she did Breakthrough, which was about the 8 steps, I believe, of wellness. I've got it over here, but I don't know what the subtitle is. But there were 8 different pillars of health and wellness. And she really went deep into bioidentical hormone replacement, as well as other things in wellness. And what had happened was after she wrote that book, because Knockout came out right away, like very soon after that book came out. And I thought, why did she just write a book so fast after this one? And if you just go to the bookstore and read the intro to this book, you will buy it, first of all. But Knockout is her story of how she went to the doctor. I want to tell the story, but I want everyone to read it when you go to the bookstore next time. Pull out Knockout or just buy the book. It's such a great story because she couldn't breathe. Like something happened. She was gardening and all of a sudden she couldn't breathe and her chest was constricted. And she went to the hospital and they scanned her and they said, oh my God, you have cancer in all of you.
Wow.
Now, there's probably no one, I mean, I'm pretty good, but there's probably no one more organized about her health, her labs, and her appointments than Suzanne. So she's like, how can that be? Like, I just got tested and I'm clear, I'm good, everything's great. And so she was but she had literally 2 or 3 doctors look at her 2 or 3 times and say, no, you have cancer and it's pretty much like you're going to die and you need to come to terms with that. And so here we have someone who's in the alternative health but she's interviewed so many doctors and she's a pioneer for thinking outside the box and questioning the things that we don't question that seem to then make us sicker and worse. And she even got to the place where she believed them. She thought she was going to die. And her daughter, I don't know if it's her biological daughter or her husband's daughter or however, but her daughter knew there was no way and went digging and digging through her medical records, all the things that she had been tested recently. And then she traced back everything Suzanne had done. And she found that when she was gardening, there was a certain kind of spore in the dirt that when she inhaled it, it showed up on the whatever medical device they use to read and show what's going on inside of her lungs. It showed up looking like cancer, but it was actually a spore.
Wow.
And these doctors had her prescribing her medications, serious medications, like that will kill her adrenals. They were like really, really damaging drugs. And so this book came out so fast because she had this thing happen and thought, holy cow, if I can be scared into thinking I have cancer and I've got 3 doctors who just told me I had cancer and I think I'm going to die and they're wrong, dead wrong. And she almost took that medication. That's why she came out with this book, because she needed to get this information out ASAP so that she could empower people to ask more questions. And because otherwise she'd be her trajectory would have been much different. And she would have lost bone and lost hair and lost muscle and gone down a really dark, I mean, she wasn't going to take all the drugs. She has so many physician friends that she called them all and people said, no, don't take that. But it was the idea that someone in the position that she is with her body, with physicians, that even she thought, she was convinced, because that's the power of what we give, even when you're on the outside, medical professionals that said, no, you have cancer. Well, guess what? She didn't have cancer. So
you know what, that is a crazy, but I'm sure this happens so more often than we could even imagine, where, doctors or, misdiagnosing things and prescribing, pharmaceuticals for, ailments that do not exist. And so I'm glad Suzanne's story has a happy ending.
Oh, absolutely. And I know she wrote it because there are people who are being over chemo that end up having problems and dying from the chemo. They would have lived through the cancer, but they die from the chemo.
Yeah. Wow. And you know what, sadly with my mother's story, it was almost the reverse, where she had been going to her primary physician, for like 10, 15 years. And the last few years of her life, and I remember she kept telling me that she felt horrible. She felt like something was wrong. She, had stomach issues. She just kept complaining. I just don't feel right. I don't feel good. I don't feel good. And so she would go to her doctor, and who would supposedly, run tests or whatever. And then I would follow up with him, and he would tell me there's nothing wrong with her, and it got to the point where he almost implied that she was a hypochondriac. He was like, there's nothing wrong with your mom. Like, I think it's all in her head. there's nothing wrong. And so then finally she went for a second opinion, to another doctor, and discovers she's got mesothelioma and has this huge mass, in her stomach, and, you just go back, and it just kind of like, sadly just makes you not trust, regular doctors sometimes. I mean, I just, encourage everybody to always get a second opinion. But you rewind and you go, if that first doctor had really done proper tests, could we have saved my mom? Maybe they would have caught it in an earlier stage where we could have done something, as opposed to discovering it, when the tumors were so large, and, and then really discovering, the blood cell diseases at the same time. To this day, I still go, how did you not catch any of this? It's just really, really sad.
Well, that's probably one of the benefits for me for Western medicine to a degree. If you can block out any of the projection and negative energy after you get tested on things, but just the getting tests, right, to rule it out and to be safe, but not necessarily stop. Like if you intuitively know something's wrong and you try some things and they don't work and you still feel bad, you go get tested and you test everything to rule out anything major and serious. And then, but the next step of where you go after that is where I want to take this conversation next, which is into that spiritual part, into that, what do we do besides alternative medicine? What is the responsibility of the person for the disease we've contracted, right? What's our part that we've played in that? And I know we talked about it for a brief moment on the last show about emotions, because I think I might have said to you, I don't know if you said to me, because when it comes to cancer across the board, I've got this awesome book called Messages from the Body, and it's the psychological meaning of all disease and ailments and pains and things like that. And I use it not to say, okay, this pain isn't real, because your pain is real, even if you have back pain. In fact, I've got clients that I've been working with now for close to 10 years. And recently I had a breakthrough over the last year with one of them where he has gone from not really believing me and just sort of putting up with my spiritual conversation to totally 100% knowing that his back pain is emotional, and to knowing that his emotions cause that. But it's taken 10 years really of seeing me twice a week. Not that I'm saying that was the goal. The goal is fitness and health and weight loss and all that. But I can't not be who I am and point out that he'd come in after being triggered by somebody and have back pain, or he wouldn't come in because he got triggered and he couldn't move. And it was like linking that to that. So I want to go a little bit today, and we'll save it for another call, because I know you and I can keep talking and we'll do another show. But because like you mentioned about your mom and could you have, and maybe you could have, but I know I remember you telling me, whether it be again on the recording or off the recording, that your mom was drinking her sweet teas, but she didn't really seem as interested in finding a healing solution as you did. And am I wrong in that?
Well, I mean, she was definitely interested in like figuring out like, why don't I feel right? But there were things, because I had been on this health and wellness journey, again, since my early 20s and stuff. And so, I've hit the 50 mark, now. And so it's been, a couple decades of, of this health and wellness journey. And so
wait a minute, hold the phone. I'm sorry. You look like you're 30. So if anyone hasn't seen Tracey, go right away to allrightnow.com because she looks 30. So if there's any poster child for natural living, it's Tracey.
I love you. You know what? And it's like the older I get, the more I hate saying my age, but I'm like, okay, I just got to like own the fact that I am getting older. And that's the one last little hurdle I got to get over. Like, okay, just own the fact I'm getting older, and just be cool with that, which I'm just, trying to just kind of be cool with, just living in the now. So.
Well, I think, and I'm with you on I don't really say the number, and I'm probably not gonna ever again. I don't want, but until I'm where you are and sitting in the place where I know that I look 20 years younger than I am. And then I get to like say, haha, right. And as a proof of my own habits, just like with you. So you're, you get to really, I mean, please, somebody go take a look at this woman and tell me if you think she does not look 30. But
I thank you.
yeah, well, but
Well,
that's a testament to, again,
well, yeah, I mean, you know
mama's
what,
journey.
and I give it to, to really, again, clean living, healthy living. And so, I was really close to my mother. Like, she and I, we had the kind of relationship where I talked to her probably at least 5 times a day, and we talked about everything and stuff. And so one of the things that I did my best, as a daughter, was to really try to like open her up to, the idea of healthy eating and preventative, health care and, all that kind of stuff. And so could never, establish a connection there and stuff. And so like, she was very old school. My mom was from Houston, Texas. And so she loved her soul food, her fried foods, her, banana puddings and, all that, her sweet tea, and so, so we could never kind of get her on that path and stuff. And so she had people who know my mom, she's beautiful, but her weight would kind of fluctuate and go up and down and stuff. And, and then when it went up and she wanted to lose weight, unfortunately she tried those quick fixes and stuff and the, diet pills and all that kind of stuff without even really paying attention to what was in those diet pills and stuff. And so, we would have those like conversations where I was like, Mom, stop, come on, don't put that in your body and stuff. And she'd be like, leave me alone. So we definitely had a disconnect there. And then the other thing too is just really, as you were about to touch on, JJ, so many emotional issues, in my opinion, can affect our health and wellness, in our body. I mean, I can tell you when I was young, I was a really competitive student, and so I think I was telling you, I got a scholarship, to Stanford and stuff. And so I was on a mission. And so like, I wanted straight A's and I was really, really hardcore, but too hardcore. And so I remember like, if a test was coming up, it would affect my stomach, and so like I'd have these terrible, terrible stomach pains. And, I'm a kid at the time and I did not realize that it was my stress and worry that was causing these stomach pains. And so I remember finally, going to the doctor and, they did all these tests because they're trying to figure out if I had appendicitis, what was going on. And we found out that I was borderline had an ulcer, and so, it's like the worry and stuff, like affecting the stomach acid and eating away, at your stomach. So when you know that stress and worry can do that to your stomach, it can affect, other parts of your body the same way, and break your cells down, and, just kind of, hurt your immune system and really cause your body to get sick. And so that's why it's really, really important that when we're talking about, health and wellness, we're also dealing with emotional wellness, spiritual wellness, as well, because all of those factors can affect the physicality, and even the biology, of your body and stuff. And so, we've got to work every day to learn how to handle stress and to learn to kind of get rid of worry as much as we can, get rid of anger, get rid of resentment, get rid of, any kind of negativity or negative thoughts that we are incorporating into our body and into our system, because these negative thoughts and negative energies that's flowing through our body can really break our body down. And so, I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah, and I can help people with all of those things on the emotional side. That's kind of why I do the events that I do, is to get people into a place where they get tools, they learn how to process emotion, because nobody's teaching you how. All you know is you feel something and you go, well, it must be your fault. I didn't feel this way before and this thing happened and it must be you. And no one teaches you how to think about it. No one teaches you how to take responsibility for an awareness of what your needs are, or even be able to identify emotions, because then there's the people that don't even know they're upset, and that's why they're overeating or why they're smoking or why they're drinking, and they're not even aware that they're so uncomfortable they're trying to numb it. And so yes, definitely emotions are a huge part. In fact, one of the books that I one day will read, I bought it and I'm a huge fan of his, and it's like I don't need to read it, and I don't mean that on a technical level because I haven't read it, but I mean I don't need to be convinced. Other people may need to be convinced, but I'm talking about Bruce Lipton's Biology of Belief. And it's about, like you had mentioned, we all have cancer cells. We all have cancer cells. Hands down, we all have cancer cells. Whether they get expressed or not is depending on the environment they're put in. And that environment is a balance of what goes into our bodies and how we think and feel. Because the energy we have in our bodies, there are people who eat poor foods who might never get sick. And there are people who eat healthy foods that might get sick all the time. And the difference between those two is not necessarily the food factor, it's the emotional factor. It's how much toxic energy do you have emotionally? How much stored anger do you have from your childhood? How much resentment? How much depression do you have because you feel stuck in your life? All those things are toxic. And when you have that toxicity being created from your emotions, it can cause cancer just the same as something that you eat. And so we had touched on that a little bit. And again, we're only touching on it a little bit again today. So we're definitely going to have you back and continue down this journey, because I want to explore a little bit more and share a little bit deeper your own spiritual and emotional path and growth through all of this. I know we've kept it kind of top level, and this is why I'm motivated to do this, and this is how I've been, but I want to go a little deeper, if you're willing, on a different show and explore that. But I wanted to definitely today just touch back on what you've learned, tap into that, share that with others, and encourage people to question what you do. Please don't ever feel like you have to, empower yourselves enough with information that you don't feel victimized by a physician or by a condition. Know that there's so many different options out there. Talk to people, research things. You don't know what you don't know. And you have to be, I believe, like the doctor of your own body. You have to be responsible for the decisions that you make. So let's tell people where to find information from you and all this great stuff that you're learning that I know that you're sharing. Tell them about the site, tell them where to go and how to navigate and what to expect.
Well, I would love for, anyone that wants to learn more about lifestyle changes to help find balance in life, on tools to become the best you, please check us out at allrightnow.com. And so let me spell it out for you. So it's ALRIGHTNOW.com. So allrightnow.com. And also follow us on social media at Instagram and on Twitter. And let me spell this out for you. So it's at ALRIGHTNOWHQ. So All Right Now HQ. So follow us there on Twitter and social media as well. So, and thank you guys for supporting us.
Thank you, Tracey, for being on the show. You'll be back soon, everyone. If you have any questions that you'd like Tracey to address or for us to talk about, please feel free to send me an email through any of the social media channels that you're already connected to, or an email if you're on my list. And we'll definitely have Tracey back. Go check out All Right Now. Tracey, thank you for being here.
Thank you, JJ.